Buenos días a todos, soy Benjamin Clare, soy el director de Beta Chain, que colaboró con Justicia y Pau para la investigación en Lubero. Lo siento por no estar presente con ustedes y también lamento tener la presentación en inglés, eh, ya que mi español, mi castellano no es tan bueno y mi catalán pues no existe.
So here we go in English. Lubero. Lubero is an interesting territory in that very limited information is available compared to other parts of the North and South Kivu provinces. Very few international NGOs are even active in that part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Even our team, we have a lot of experience with due diligence in DRC and with mineral supply chains. We previously designed and deployed a traceability and due diligence program in the country, but that did not reach Lubero. The lack of information about Lubero contributes to mistrust from responsible traders and investors, which perpetuates a cycle of illegality and financial exclusion for local communities. It is also very difficult for the international civil society to intervene efficiently due to the absence of reliable data. In the meantime, due diligence programs established in the country are not appropriately monitored by civil society, and the unintended negative consequences of due diligence remain poorly explained. We strongly believe that Europe can revert and should revert that cycle by focusing on better information management. So it was an honor for us to conduct this research, and we wish to congratulate Justicia y Pau for their efforts and commitment. The baseline evaluation was actually conducted at the end of 2018, and we followed a fairly usual process, starting with re-engagement with all our contacts in the country and a review of the latest updates in terms of governance and security. We also had to pre-identify all essential information sources at local level. As was expected, the field mission itself was challenging because mine sites are almost impossible to reach. Thus, some of our findings are based on discussions in Butembo with other people familiar with mining settlements, including Justice CP. Here are some of our risk findings. The role of government structures is problematic in Lubero. Any appointed government agent tends to jump on the opportunity to claim a little share of the mineral trade, which is widely accepted as a necessary condition for doing business in Congo. There is very limited useful oversight of the local mining sector. Of course, and that is somewhat related, DRC is one of the poorest and least developed countries in Africa. Although considerable sums of money flood into the country, Lubero itself is more isolated than other territories, and it sees close to zero foreign investment and limited international NGO coverage. Beni and Butembo, the main cities, are key commercial and trading hubs in eastern DRC and unfortunately magnets for informal markets and criminal networks. You see an extensive presence of ethnic or tribal non-state armed groups across the territory, often acting as local security forces. We identified that at least 10 non-state armed groups are active in the territory at present. There is a notable insecurity threat caused by the ADF armed group, likely the most problematic armed group in DRC. These illegal armed groups continue to be involved in artisanal and small-scale mining activities, specifically through taxation of the gold trade. Hardly any export of gold is conducted legally. Hardly any law, including the recently updated mining code, is ever fully implemented. Meanwhile, the conditions of miners and communities continue to be dreadful, and absolutely nothing has changed in that regard since Dodd-Frank. You can find detailed supply chain findings in the report from Justicia y Pau. In terms of due diligence, for 3T, so that is tin, tantalum, and tungsten minerals, production in Lubero is now quite limited. These minerals used to be a large source of income for communities. This is in part because market conditions have changed and prices are low, but it is also because international expectations of due diligence have made it complicated and costly for the artisanal mining sector to access international markets. Due diligence is supposed to represent the actions taken by stakeholders to improve access to information and manage risk, but in fact, it has been implemented by third parties and has not raised transparency. For gold, there is only the government-managed certification program, which has not gained recognition from responsible international buyers. So despite enormous efforts and money spent to develop certification programs, the entire sector is opaque, with very little reliable information available, let alone positive impact in terms of risk mitigation and local economic development. Once again, you can find all the details we assembled in Justicia y Pau's report. Here is a snapshot of the main impacts of the mineral supply chain at local level. We have provided some insights into the myriad of challenges faced by these mining communities, from security and human rights abuses to corruption and fraud. The list of issues is endless, and as I previously said, from our observations, international scrutiny and US regulation have done nothing to improve the lives of local communities so far. Yet, this is not a story of risk. International stakeholders always focus on risk, and they forget the opportunity which the mineral supply chain represents to connect and engage with struggling communities. In the report, we also provide an overview of these communities' circumstances. There are specific observations from Lubero, but really reflect challenges that exist across the entire country. Now, if the minerals contained in our daily products originate from this country, our responsibility should be to solve those challenges. Clearly, a lot of efforts are needed to educate international companies and consumers on the benefits of engaging with mining actors. It is when we disengage, when we stop buying from these places, that we contribute to their isolation. The international civil society really has a role to play to change that narrative. It should not systematically focus on negative stories which stigmatize local actors. DRC communities need support, they need that we communicate with them, not that we eliminate them from our supply chains. The mineral supply chain is an opportunity to engage with previously invisible communities. Implementing procurement standards which eliminate them from the supply chain only makes their situation worse. In the report, we formulate other recommendations for the involvement of civil society actors. Some of them are outlined here. None of them matters as much as the improvement of information channels between remote communities and global consumers. In that regard, we are currently working on mechanisms to simply improve access to data originating from such geographies. You cannot pretend to mitigate risk or make an impact if local knowledge, local data continues to be so hard to get. We hope that the European Union will encourage information sharing mechanisms so that everyone like you in the room can more regularly access reliable data from places like Lubero.
Moltes gràcies per la seva atenció. Si tiene más preguntas al final del evento de hoy, no duden en ponerse en contacto con nosotros. Gracias.